As we drove into Asheville, the vibrant colors of the autumn leaves painted a picture that should have felt warm and inviting. Instead, I felt a chill creeping in, not from the crisp mountain air, but from the distance that had grown between my husband and me. The laughter of my stepson, Ethan, filled the car as he recounted tales from his college days. I forced a smile, trying to engage, but my mind drifted to the silence that lingered in our marriage. The hotel we arrived at was charming, nestled among the rolling hills. We were supposed to enjoy a family getaway, reconnect and create memories. Yet, as I stood in the lobby waiting for our room keys, I sensed an invisible barrier separating me from my husband. He was busy on his phone, likely dealing with work matters instead of focusing on us. "Mom, can you believe this place?" Ethan exclaimed as he pointed to a nearby art installation. His enthusiasm was genuine, and for a moment, it warmed my heart. But it quickly faded when I caught sight of my husband's distracted expression. After checking in, we made our way to our rooms. A mix-up with reservations meant Ethan and I would share a room while my husband took another down the hall. My heart sank at the thought of being alone with him, my stepson who had grown into an attractive young man during his college years. As night fell and we settled into our temporary space filled with local artwork and rustic charm, I tried to push away any thoughts that dared to cross my mind. Ethan suggested we watch a movie together. It felt innocent enough. We laughed at the antics on screen while I stole glances at him. His laughter was infectious, his presence comforting. But beneath it all simmered an unacknowledged tension that neither of us dared address. The more time we spent together that evening, the more alive I felt, a stark contrast to how invisible I felt in my marriage. Later that night, after Ethan had gone to bed, I sat on the balcony overlooking the Blue Ridge Parkway. The stars twinkled above like distant hopes just out of reach. My phone buzzed with a message from my husband informing me he would be returning home earlier than planned due to work commitments. My heart raced as I processed this news. He would miss out on what should have been quality family time together in Asheville. The thought left me feeling unsettled, not just because of his absence but because it meant that whatever connection was developing between Ethan and me could be disrupted before it even began. I went back inside and found Ethan asleep on one half of the bed while my thoughts raced through scenarios. What if? What if we crossed lines that should remain unspoken? The weight of loneliness pressed heavily on me as I lay there staring at the ceiling. In an impulsive decision driven by emotions swirling within me like leaves caught in a storm, I turned toward him. He stirred slightly, his eyes fluttered open and met mine with confusion mingled with something else, curiosity. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "I'm fine," I replied too quickly. We exchanged glances filled with unsaid words until finally something shifted between us. A moment suspended in time where everything else faded away except for this undeniable connection pulsing through the air like electricity. "Do you ever feel invisible?" The words slipped out before I could catch them. Ethan looked surprised but nodded slowly as if admitting something profound without saying it aloud. "I do sometimes," he admitted quietly. In that moment of vulnerability shared between us under muted moonlight filtering through curtains drawn tight against prying eyes outside our little sanctuary, the boundaries began to blur further than either of us anticipated. Before either of us could think better of it or consider consequences looming ahead like shadows waiting for dawn's light, we leaned closer together until our lips brushed softly against one another's in an unexpected kiss filled with longing and confusion. An act both thrilling yet terrifying as reality loomed ever closer like morning mist enveloping everything around us. Suddenly there was noise outside, a familiar sound echoing down the hallway followed by footsteps approaching rapidly towards our door, and all at once panic surged within me as realization dawned upon what had just transpired between us moments ago. What might happen next if someone walked in now? I pulled back abruptly while trying desperately to compose myself despite feeling breathless from what had just happened. Ethan looked equally startled yet intrigued by how quickly things had escalated between us without warning or preparation for such revelations unfolding right before our eyes. Our lives tangled up together under this roof where secrets thrived amidst laughter echoing off walls painted bright colors only found here among artists' dreams come alive within Asheville's embrace. The doors swung open revealing my husband standing there looking bewildered yet somehow knowing something wasn't quite right. It was too late for explanations now. Too late for anything other than facing whatever consequences awaited us both after crossing lines never meant to be crossed. The air in the room thickened with unspoken words, a tension that felt almost tangible. My heart raced as I stared at Ethan, his eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and something deeper. We had crossed an invisible line, one that had been drawn by the circumstances of our lives but also by the loneliness that had seeped into my marriage. Grace? My husband's voice cut through the silence, sharp and questioning. I turned to him, feeling exposed under his gaze. The moment hung heavy in the air, filled with the weight of what I had just shared with Ethan. The kiss lingered on my lips like a haunting echo, a reminder of how quickly everything could change. Tom, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. I can explain. But could I? How could I articulate the complexities of my feelings without unraveling everything? Ethan stood frozen beside me, his expression shifting from shock to concern for me, as if he understood how precarious this moment was for both of us. He glanced at Tom, then back at me. A silent understanding passed between us, one that acknowledged the absurdity yet undeniable truth of our situation. My husband took a step forward, his brow furrowed in confusion. What's going on here? His tone was firm but laced with an underlying hurt that twisted my stomach into knots. I started but faltered under his intense scrutiny. What could possibly justify this? The truth felt too raw to lay bare before him now. Just what? Tom pressed, his voice rising slightly as frustration crept into it. You were just kissing my son? The accusation hung in the air like a thundercloud ready to burst. Ethan's face flushed with embarrassment, he shifted slightly away from me as if distancing himself from the situation entirely. My heart sank further into despair at the realization of how this would affect him too. It was a mistake, I blurted out, desperate for some semblance of control over this spiraling moment. We didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't mean for it to happen? Tom echoed incredulously. How does something like that just happen? I felt trapped between two worlds, my husband's hurt and Ethan's confusion, and all I wanted was to escape this nightmare unfolding before us. I'm sorry, Ethan finally spoke up, breaking the silence that enveloped us again. His voice was steady despite the turmoil evident in his eyes. I didn't mean to put either of you in this position. Tom's gaze shifted between us as if trying to piece together what had led us here, a mother figure and her stepson caught in a web woven from years of unacknowledged feelings and unmet needs. Maybe we should all just take a moment, Tom suggested after what felt like an eternity of silence filled with tension and unspoken fears. I nodded slowly, grateful for any chance to gather my thoughts and breathe away from their piercing stares. I moved toward the window where Asheville sprawled below us, a picturesque view marred by chaos within my heart. As I gazed out at the vibrant streets below bustling with tourists exploring art galleries and local breweries, memories flooded back, family trips where laughter echoed through car windows and love felt abundant rather than strained by secrets and resentments. Grace, Tom called softly from behind me after several moments passed in silence. Do you love him? The question struck like lightning. It illuminated parts of my soul that had been long buried under layers of obligation and routine. No, I replied too quickly, it sounded hollow even to my own ears. But as Ethan stepped closer beside me, his presence ignited something within, a warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold reality awaiting us outside these walls. What do you want? Tom asked again, more gently this time but still probing for answers he deserved to know. I turned back toward them both. Their faces reflected confusion but also concern, two men who cared deeply about me yet stood on opposite sides now because of choices made in fleeting moments driven by loneliness rather than clarity. My voice faltered again as uncertainty washed over me like waves crashing against rocks, relentless yet soothing all at once. What could I want when everything seemed so tangled? We kissed, slipped out before I could stop myself. It hung heavy between us, a confession born not only from guilt but also yearning for connection lost long ago amidst daily routines filled with distractions rather than intimacy or understanding. Tom inhaled sharply. Disappointment flickered across his features briefly before he masked it behind an impassive facade again, a skill honed over years spent navigating our marriage's complexities. "I need time," he finally said after what felt like an eternity spent searching each other's eyes for answers neither could provide fully anymore without tearing apart threads binding us together still somehow despite this fracture now laid bare before all three involved here tonight. Ethan nodded slowly beside me while glancing down at his hands, the weight of what had transpired pressing heavily upon his shoulders too despite being younger than either Tom or myself facing such dilemmas now laid bare before them both without warning or preparation beforehand whatsoever. It was also very sudden yet eerily familiar too somehow. As minutes ticked by silently through thickened air laden with tension surrounding every word spoken between us three souls caught up within emotional turmoil unfolding right here tonight amidst laughter echoing off walls painted bright colors only found here among artists, dreams come alive within Asheville's embrace. Maybe there was hope still left somewhere hidden beneath layers upon layers built up over years spent ignoring signs pointing toward deeper connections waiting patiently underneath surface-level interactions barely scratching surface-level needs unmet until now, finally emerging into light shining brightly against backdrop-filled darkness lurking beneath shadows cast long ago when life seemed simpler before complications arose inevitably leading down paths never planned nor desired initially. But then reality crashed back down upon me like waves crashing against rocks once more reminding everyone involved there were consequences awaiting each choice made henceforth moving forward beyond tonight leaving behind traces lingering memories etched forevermore, within hearts intertwined whether wanted or not. The quiet of the hotel room felt heavy, laden with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved emotions. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart racing as I replayed the moment we shared. Our lips met, and that fleeting connection seemed to ignite something deep within me. The thrill of it clashed violently with the guilt that quickly followed. I glanced at him, my stepson, who was leaning against the wall, his expression a mix of confusion and longing. The room felt too small for the enormity of what had just happened. I could hear my own breath, sharp and quick, as if it were a reminder of how precarious our situation was. "Grace," he said softly, breaking the silence. His voice was steady but held an undercurrent of uncertainty. "What do we do now?" I swallowed hard, trying to find the right words amidst the turmoil swirling in my mind. "I don't know," I admitted finally, my voice barely above a whisper. This changes everything." He nodded slowly, his gaze dropping to the floor as if searching for answers in the patterned carpet beneath our feet. The tension hung between us like a taut string ready to snap at any moment. I could feel my pulse quicken again as I thought about my husband returning early from his trip. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Would he sense something was off? Would he see through whatever facade I tried to maintain? "We shouldn't have done that," I said suddenly, though part of me questioned whether I truly believed it. The thrill still lingered in my veins, a stark contrast to the guilt weighing down on me. "I know," he replied quietly, but there was an intensity in his eyes that suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. I stood up abruptly, needing to put some distance between us even though every fiber of my being wanted to close that gap once more. "We need to think about how this will affect everyone," I said, pacing across the small room. He watched me with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "What about us?" What does this mean for us? The question hung in the air like a challenge. My heart raced again at his words. They echoed in my mind long after they left his lips. Could we really consider what we had just begun? Or was it simply a momentary lapse driven by loneliness and desperation? As I turned away from him, momentarily lost in thought, memories flooded back. Family dinners filled with laughter that felt hollow now, evenings spent apart while he retreated into his world and I into mine, moments where we passed each other like ships in the night. Grace? His voice pulled me back into reality. I turned to face him again. He looked vulnerable yet determined, a combination that stirred something deep within me once more. I don't want to lose this feeling, he confessed quietly. Neither do I admitted reluctantly, feeling an unexpected warmth spread through me despite everything else weighing heavily on my conscience. Just then, a sudden noise from outside broke through our fragile bubble, a door slamming shut down the hall followed by hurried footsteps approaching our room. My heart dropped as panic surged through me. It's him, I whispered urgently. His eyes widened in alarm as realization dawned on both of us simultaneously. There was no time left for contemplation or escape now. What do we do? He asked frantically. Just act normal, I instructed quickly but knew full well how impossible that would be given our circumstances. We both took a step back from each other just as another sound echoed closer, a key turning in our door lock followed by a familiar voice calling out my name, Grace. Are you here? My husband's tone held an edge of impatience mixed with concern that sent chills down my spine as dread settled heavily over me like a thick fog obscuring all clarity ahead. Yes. I called back too brightly, forcing myself into composure while glancing one last time at him before turning toward the door where reality awaited with open arms ready to embrace chaos instead of comfort. The door swung open, slowly revealing him standing there looking slightly disheveled but unmistakably relieved upon seeing me inside, yet behind that relief lay something else lurking deeper within his eyes, suspicion perhaps? What's going on? He asked sharply, glancing past me into the room searching for signs of anything amiss while oblivious to what had just transpired moments before his arrival. How could he ever know? Nothing. Just relaxing after a long day. My voice trembled slightly as anxiety clawed at my insides, threatening to spill out if not contained properly under layers carefully constructed over years spent keeping secrets hidden away from prying eyes eager for truth beneath surface-level interactions. Barely scratching needs unmet until now finally emerging into light shining brightly against backdrop-filled darkness lurking beneath shadows cast long ago when life seemed simpler before complications arose inevitably leading down paths never planned nor desired initially. He studied me closely, then shifted his gaze toward where my stepson stood awkwardly near the window pretending interest outside despite knowing full well what lay behind those glass panes. An escape route perhaps? Are you two okay? His question cut through tension hanging thickly around us like smoke filling lungs, choking off any chance for clarity amidst confusion swirling rapidly around every thought, unspoken lingering just beyond reach, waiting patiently until someone dared speak them aloud. Breaking silence holding sway over this moment, teetering precariously between chaos and calmness, threatening collapse under weight borne too long without respite. We're fine, I replied quickly, hoping sincerity would mask underlying trepidation while desperately wishing for time rewind button allowing retreat back into safety, found only moments before reality crashed down upon us once more, reminding everyone involved there were consequences awaiting each choice made, henceforth moving forward beyond tonight, leaving behind traces, lingering memories etched forevermore within hearts intertwined whether wanted or not. But even as those words left my mouth echoing hollowly against walls closing in around us, feeling increasingly claustrophobic, the truth remained: nothing would ever be quite right again after tonight. The phone call from my husband lingered in the air like a storm cloud, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved tension. Are you sure everything is okay? The question echoed in my mind, a reminder of the fragile web I had woven around myself. I glanced at my stepson, his eyes reflecting a mix of concern and something deeper that I could no longer ignore. "Yeah, just tired from the trip," I replied, forcing a casual tone that felt increasingly false. The weight of our shared secret pressed down on both of us, an invisible bond tightening with each moment we spent together. He nodded slowly, but I could see the uncertainty etched on his face. We had crossed a line that neither of us could uncross, and the reality of it was beginning to settle like dust in the corners of our minds. As I hung up, silence enveloped us again. The room felt smaller, as if it were closing in on our shared complicity. "What do we do now?" he asked quietly, breaking the stillness that had become almost unbearable. "I don't know," I admitted. I didn't plan for any of this. My heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead. The thrill of our connection was intoxicating yet terrifying. It was a dangerous game we were playing. He shifted closer to me on the bed, his presence both comforting and alarming. "We can't just pretend like nothing happened," he stated matter-of-factly, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "No," I agreed softly. "But what does that mean for us?" It was an uncharted territory filled with potential consequences that loomed like shadows over our heads. The thought of exposure made my stomach churn. I could almost hear my husband's footsteps echoing down the hall as he returned home early. "We spent the night together," I whispered under my breath, grappling with the enormity of those words. It wasn't just about physical intimacy, it was about emotions laid bare and vulnerabilities exposed. In those fleeting hours before dawn broke through the curtains, we had shared more than just a kiss. We had shared parts of ourselves that felt irrevocably intertwined. "I can't go back to how things were," he said suddenly, pulling me from my thoughts. "I don't want to." His gaze bore into mine with an intensity that made my heart race for reasons both thrilling and frightening. "Neither do I," I confessed, feeling raw and exposed beneath his scrutiny. This connection, this undeniable chemistry, had awakened something within me that had long been dormant. But it also came with risks that could shatter everything I held dear. "What if your husband finds out?" he asked quietly, anxiety creeping into his voice. I shook my head slowly, weighing each word carefully before speaking. "I can't let him find out," I said firmly but with an edge of desperation. "Not yet." The thought sent chills down my spine as images flashed through my mind, confrontations filled with accusations and heartbreak, shattered trust hanging heavily in the air between us all. "What if we're caught?" he pressed further, searching for reassurance that neither of us could provide. "Then we deal with it when it happens," I replied more harshly than intended. The truth was too complex to simplify into reassurances neither of us believed in anymore. The silence stretched between us again as we both contemplated our next moves in this precarious dance we found ourselves entangled within. We couldn't ignore what had happened, nor could we fully embrace it without acknowledging its potential fallout. Suddenly there was a knock at the door, sharp and jarring against our quiet deliberation. My heart raced as panic flooded through me. Every instinct screamed at me to hide or run away from this moment entirely. "Who is it?" I called out cautiously, trying to keep my voice steady while feeling anything but calm inside. "It's me," came my husband's voice from outside, the sound sending ice through my veins as dread settled heavily upon me once more. "We'll talk later," I whispered urgently to him before rising to face whatever awaited me beyond that door, a confrontation fraught with uncertainty looming just beyond reach. "Grace?" My husband's tone held an edge of concern mixed with something else, suspicion? Fear? "Yes," I replied, forcing myself to sound composed even as chaos swirled around me internally. "Can you open up? We need to talk." His words hung heavy in the air like smoke after a fire, thickening every breath taken within this confined space where secrets nested among shadows cast by dim light spilling through cracks around doorframes leading into unknown futures filled with potential heartbreak waiting patiently lurking just beyond sight. "I'll be right there." turning back toward him momentarily before stepping away felt agonizingly slow. A final glance exchanged filled not only with longing but also trepidation about what lay ahead once truths began unraveling, threads woven tightly together until now. As I opened the door and stepped into reality once more, the world outside remained unchanged, but everything within had shifted irrevocably, leaving behind traces, lingering memories etched forevermore within hearts intertwined whether wanted or not. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, thoughts swirling like leaves caught in a gust of wind. My heart raced as I replayed the events of last night, each moment etched vividly in my mind. The kiss lingered between us, a fragile thread connecting two worlds that should never have intertwined. I glanced at my stepson, still asleep beside me. His face was peaceful, unaware of the turmoil brewing just beneath the surface. I quietly slipped out of bed, careful not to disturb him. The bathroom mirror reflected a woman grappling with choices that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I splashed cold water on my face, hoping to wash away the remnants of confusion clouding my thoughts. As I dressed, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from my husband flashed on the screen. "I'll be home earlier than expected today." Panic surged within me. His early return could unravel everything. I quickly typed a response, attempting to mask my anxiety with casual indifference. "Sounds good. Looking forward to seeing you." The minutes ticked by agonizingly slow as I paced around the hotel room. My mind raced with what-ifs and maybes. What would happen if he walked in and found us together? Would he see the truth hidden behind our shared moments? The weight of secrecy pressed down on me like an anchor threatening to pull me under. I needed air, space to think without feeling suffocated by guilt and fear. Stepping outside onto the balcony, I took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp mountain air that filled my lungs with clarity. Below me, Asheville bustled with life. Families strolled through the streets, laughter echoed from nearby cafes. It seemed so far removed from my reality. A sudden knock at the door startled me from my thoughts. My heart skipped a beat as I turned to see who it was. A family friend we hadn't seen in years stood there, beaming brightly as if she had just come from a joyous reunion rather than interrupting mine. "Grace, I didn't expect to find you here," she exclaimed cheerfully, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "Hi. It's good to see you," I managed to say, forcing a smile while internally panicking over how much she might notice. "Is this your room?" she asked innocently enough, but her gaze shifted toward where my stepson lay sleeping on the bed. I felt exposed under her scrutiny as if every unspoken word hung heavy in the air between us. "Just a mix-up with reservations," I replied hastily. "He's just visiting." "Oh. How lovely," she chirped before continuing her small talk about local attractions and art galleries, the very things that once excited me but now felt hollow against this backdrop of uncertainty. As she chatted away about exhibits and restaurants worth visiting, I struggled to focus on her words while glancing nervously at the clock ticking ominously toward danger. My husband's arrival loomed closer with every passing second. "What about your husband?" she asked suddenly, breaking through my haze of worry. "He's coming back soon," I said too quickly. It sounded rehearsed even to my own ears. Her brow furrowed slightly as if sensing something off-kilter in my demeanor, but then she shrugged it off with a laugh. "Well, tell him hello for me. And enjoy your trip." With that cheerful farewell hanging awkwardly between us like an unfinished sentence, she left just as swiftly as she had appeared, leaving behind an unsettling silence filled only by the distant sounds of Asheville waking up around us. My heart raced anew, not only from relief but also dread over what might happen next. Time felt like sand slipping through fingers grasping desperately for control over an uncontrollable situation. I returned inside and found myself staring at my stepson again, his presence both comforting and alarming all at once, wondering how long we could continue this charade without someone discovering our secret connection. The minutes dragged on until finally, I heard it, tires crunching gravel outside followed by footsteps echoing down hallways leading directly toward our room door. My husband entered without knocking. His expression morphed from casual curiosity into shock when he saw us together, the tension thickening instantly like fog rolling over mountains at dawn. "What is going on here?" he demanded sharply, his voice low yet filled with disbelief that sliced through any remaining illusion of normalcy left between us. Caught off guard by his sudden appearance and accusatory tone, I struggled for words while glancing nervously between him and my stepson who was still groggy from sleep but now wide awake, his eyes darting back and forth between us as realization dawned upon him too late. "We were just," my voice faltered before trailing off into silence, a void filled only by unspoken truths hanging heavily in the air around us. A moment frozen forevermore beneath layers of betrayal woven intricately into our family fabric now threatened by exposure. In that instant, I understood nothing would ever be quite right again. Whatever fragile bonds existed before could shatter irreparably under scrutiny, leaving behind only shards reflecting choices made amidst confusion. And yet somehow, I also understood this was merely the beginning, the first step toward unraveling everything we thought we knew about love and loyalty within these invisible bonds tying us together. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over Asheville's River Arts District. I wandered through the bustling streets, the vibrant colors of the galleries flickering like memories in my mind. Each step felt heavier than the last, a constant reminder of the secrets I carried. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from my thoughts. A message from my stepson flashed on the screen. "Can we talk? I need to see you." An unsettling mix of anticipation and dread filled me. The weight of our unspoken connection loomed large, yet I couldn't deny the pull that urged me to respond. I glanced around, ensuring no one was watching, before typing back a quick reply. "Where?" "Meet me at the brewery," he wrote back almost instantly. The local craft brewery was alive with laughter and clinking glasses. As I approached, my heart raced. The atmosphere buzzed with camaraderie, yet I felt as if I were stepping into another world, one where our hidden glances could ignite a firestorm if discovered. Inside, he sat at a corner table, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. There was an intensity in his gaze that made it hard to breathe. We exchanged small talk about our day, but there was an undercurrent of tension that made every word feel charged with meaning. "I've been thinking about everything," he said finally, his voice low enough to drown in the surrounding noise. "About us." I nodded slowly, swallowing hard. "It's complicated." "Complicated doesn't begin to cover it," he replied, leaning closer. "I can't pretend it didn't happen." The memories flooded back, the stolen moments in our hotel room and the way we kissed with reckless abandon as if nothing else mattered. But now, surrounded by laughter and life outside our bubble, reality pressed down on us like a heavy fog. "What are we doing?" I asked quietly. He shrugged slightly but didn't look away. "I don't know, but pretending everything is fine isn't working for me anymore." My heart raced as his words sank in. They echoed in my mind like a warning bell. The stakes had risen dramatically since our last encounter. My husband's growing suspicions were palpable. He had started asking questions about my whereabouts and late-night phone calls. "I don't want to hurt anyone," I said softly. "Neither do I," he replied firmly, yet there was an unmistakable longing in his eyes that mirrored my own desires. We fell silent for a moment, each lost in thought while the world continued around us, friends laughing together over beers and couples sharing intimate moments at nearby tables. The contrast between their joy and our turmoil felt stark. As if sensing the tension between us, he reached across the table and took my hand in his, a simple gesture that sent shockwaves through me. It felt so right yet so wrong all at once. "I just need to know what you want," he said softly. I opened my mouth to respond when suddenly a familiar voice cut through our bubble like glass shattering on concrete. "There you are. Grace." My husband's voice rang out across the room as he stepped through the doorway with an air of casual confidence that belied his growing unease. Panic surged through me as I quickly withdrew my hand from beneath his. It felt as though time had stopped while reality crashed back down upon us like an unforgiving wave. "Hey." "Just grabbing a drink," I managed to say with forced nonchalance as my husband approached our table. He looked between us with narrowed eyes before settling on me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I thought you'd be at home resting." "I wanted to check out this place while we're here," I replied too quickly. His gaze lingered on my stepson for just a moment too long before returning to me. Suspicion flickered behind those familiar eyes, a reminder that nothing could remain hidden forever. "Let's grab some drinks together then," he suggested cheerfully, oblivious or unwilling to confront what lay beneath the surface of this seemingly innocent outing. My stepson shot me a quick glance filled with uncertainty before plastering on a smile that matched my husband's too closely for comfort. The three of us settled into awkward conversation over beers that tasted bitter against my tongue, each sip weighed down by unspoken truths hanging heavily between us like storm clouds ready to burst. As we talked about mundane things, what sights we'd seen and plans for tomorrow, I couldn't shake off the feeling of impending doom creeping closer with every passing moment spent together in this tangled web we'd woven ourselves into without truly understanding its consequences. When finally we finished our drinks and stood up to leave, relief washed over me briefly until another message pinged through on my phone, a notification from an unknown number. "I saw you." My heart dropped into my stomach as dread pooled there like molten lead. Who could have seen? The implications were staggering. What would happen if someone shared what they witnessed? My mind raced with scenarios, a confrontation leading to shattered lives or worse. "We should get going," I said hastily as panic surged within me again. Urgency colored every word spoken now as if time itself might slip away at any moment without warning. My husband nodded absent-mindedly while glancing around, the tension still palpable despite his attempts at normalcy, but all I could focus on was how close we were standing together now. How easy it would be for someone watching closely enough to piece together fragments of this fractured reality we'd created. Outside under fading light enveloping Asheville streets, my heart pounded loudly against its cage, each beat reminding me of choices made and paths taken leading toward uncertainty ahead threatening everything held dear. As we walked toward our car parked nearby, I couldn't shake off feeling watched, as though unseen eyes followed every move made, waiting for something more than just silence, but rather revelation waiting just beyond reach. The engine purred softly as I turned the key, but the sound felt distant, muffled by the weight of what lay ahead. My stepson sat beside me, his expression a mixture of concern and uncertainty. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dashboard, illuminating the tension that hung thick in the air. We were both aware that this moment was a pivot point, one that could lead to unforeseen consequences. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, breaking the silence that had enveloped us since we left the hotel. I nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at my insides. "Just thinking about everything." My voice sounded foreign to my ears, subdued and cautious. He glanced out the window as if searching for answers among the trees lining the road. "This trip has been different." Different indeed. The moments shared between us had shifted something fundamental within me. A spark ignited by loneliness had flared into an ember of desire I hadn't anticipated. "Yeah," I replied slowly, weighing my words. "It's been a lot to process." He turned his gaze back to me, his eyes searching mine for clarity. "What happens now?" The question hung in the air like a heavy fog. What did happen now? I could feel my heart racing as I contemplated all that had transpired, the stolen glances, whispered confessions, and our shared moment when we kissed. How could I explain this tangled web of emotions? "I don't know," I admitted finally, gripping the steering wheel tighter as if it would anchor me in this tumultuous sea of feelings. We drove in silence for a while longer until we reached a scenic overlook on Blue Ridge Parkway. The view was breathtaking, rolling mountains stretched into infinity beneath a sky painted with hues of orange and purple. But even nature's beauty couldn't distract from my internal chaos. "Let's get out," he suggested softly, breaking through my reverie. I parked and stepped out into the crisp mountain air, inhaling deeply as if trying to clear my mind along with my lungs. He joined me at the railing overlooking the valley below. We stood shoulder to shoulder, each lost in our thoughts. "This is where it all began for us," he said quietly after some time. I turned to him sharply, memories flooded back, moments filled with laughter during family hikes and quiet conversations over breakfast when he was younger. Those memories were laced with nostalgia and regret now, tainted by what had happened between us. "Things have changed," I murmured, unable to look him in the eye for fear of what I might see reflected there. "Do you regret it?" His voice was steady but laced with vulnerability. Regret was complicated. It coiled around my heart like ivy choking a tree. "I don't know if regret is what I feel." The truth felt raw on my tongue. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming yet comforting at once. "What do you want?" That question pierced through me like an arrow. It demanded honesty in a way I hadn't prepared for. What did I want? To feel seen? To reclaim a part of myself lost within years of marriage? Or perhaps it was simply an escape from reality, a fleeting connection that had morphed into something deeper than intended. My voice faltered as uncertainty gripped me again. "I want things to be different." His eyes searched mine for an answer that wasn't there. We both knew this moment could not last forever. This fragile bubble created by shared secrets and unspoken desires would inevitably burst under scrutiny. A sudden noise broke our reverie. A car pulling up behind us on the overlook caught our attention. My heart raced as I recognized it instantly. My husband's vehicle pulling into view shattered whatever illusion we'd built around ourselves here in this picturesque setting. "What do we do?" he asked urgently as panic set in his features. "We act normal," I whispered urgently, forcing myself to breathe steadily despite feeling like everything was spiraling out of control again. As my husband stepped out of the car, his demeanor relaxed yet curious, I felt every fiber of my being tense up instinctively like a coiled spring ready to snap under pressure. His gaze landed on us immediately. Confusion flickered across his face before settling into something more guarded as he approached. "Hey. What are you two doing?" He smiled, but there was an edge beneath it that made me uneasy. "Just enjoying the view," I replied too quickly, forcing a smile onto my lips that felt painfully unnatural given everything hanging between us like an invisible thread threatening to unravel at any moment. He nodded slowly but didn't seem convinced. There was something about his expression that told me he sensed more than met the eye, an instinct honed over years of marriage perhaps, or simply intuition telling him things weren't quite right between us anymore. After exchanging pleasantries filled with polite laughter meant to mask underlying tension, the three of us stood together awkwardly staring into vastness below while unspoken words loomed heavy above us instead, a storm brewing just beyond sight waiting patiently for its chance to break free. My husband's phone buzzed suddenly against his leg. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen before frowning slightly, a change from joviality creeping back into his features again like shadows lengthening across dusklit mountains ahead of us all too soon. "Sorry," he said reluctantly after reading whatever message awaited him there before pocketing it again quickly without elaboration further. An uncharacteristic move from someone usually so open about sharing news, even mundane ones, on family trips such as this one. "It's getting late, we should head back soon," he added almost dismissively as if eager to leave behind whatever questions lingered unspoken between us, still hanging thickly in air surrounding our trio now. As we walked back toward our car, I couldn't shake off feeling watched, as though unseen eyes followed every move made, waiting for something more than just silence, but rather revelation waiting just beyond reach. Once inside again, the atmosphere shifted dramatically once more, a palpable tension settled heavily upon all three occupants within confines now closed off from outside world beyond glass windows shielding them away from prying eyes looking inward instead. My husband started driving without saying much further, his focus seemingly elsewhere while both stepson and I exchanged glances filled with uncertainty over what would happen next. It felt like standing precariously upon edge overlooking abyss waiting patiently below threatening collapse beneath feet at any moment should misstep occur. What did you mean earlier when you said things should be different? My stepson broke through silence unexpectedly causing me nearly jump from surprise, not expecting him daring venture forth so boldly amidst present company surrounding us now. I meant, words caught within throat unwillingly churned around without finding their way free, not sure how best articulate feelings swirling inside head without betraying truths better left hidden away safely tucked beneath layers built over time spent together thus far. But before an answer could form or escape lips, the car suddenly jolted forward unexpectedly causing everyone within vehicle lurch slightly against seatbelts binding them firmly down instead. A loud thud followed by crashing sound echoed sharply against metal frames surrounding all three passengers seated inside leaving hearts racing wildly once more amidst chaos erupting around them unexpectedly pulling attention away from prior conversation lingering, still unresolved between them. My husband swore softly under breath, eyes darting toward rearview mirror searching frantically behind them while stepson leaned forward instinctively bracing against dashboard attempting discern source noise echoing still resonating loudly throughout confined space enclosing them tightly together now. What happened? My voice trembled slightly betraying anxiety rising rapidly within chest threatening spill forth uncontrollably unless contained somehow amidst uncertainty surrounding everyone present here right now. All three caught within tangled web spun tightly around them unable break free easily without consequence looming ominously overhead waiting patiently just beyond reach. The tension in the car thickened, wrapping around us like a heavy fog. My husband's voice broke through, sharp and demanding. What happened back there? He glanced at me, his expression a mix of confusion and accusation. I could feel the weight of his gaze, the unspoken questions hanging in the air between us. I don't know, I said, trying to sound calm, though my heart raced. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. The words felt hollow as they left my lips. My stepson shifted in his seat, eyes darting between us, sensing the charged atmosphere. Misunderstanding? My husband echoed incredulously. You were just kissing him. The accusation hung heavily in the air, each syllable piercing deeper than I anticipated. No. It wasn't like that, I protested too quickly, panic rising within me. But even as I spoke, I felt the truth clawing at my insides. It had been more than just a moment, it had been an awakening of something I had buried deep beneath layers of obligation and routine. The car fell silent, filled only with the sound of tires humming against asphalt and the distant murmur of life outside our vehicle. My mind raced back to that night, the way we had connected in a way that felt forbidden yet exhilarating. The memory lingered like an echo in my mind. Grace, my husband said slowly, his voice low but firm. I need you to be honest with me. I looked out the window at the passing scenery, trees blurred by speed and sunlight filtering through leaves, searching for clarity amidst chaos. I'm not sure what you want me to say. His frustration boiled over. I want you to tell me why you've been so distant. His hands gripped the wheel tightly as if it might somehow steer us out of this mess. I've felt invisible, I admitted finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Like I'm not really here anymore. The honesty spilled out before I could stop it, vulnerability surged forth as if unearthing buried truths from their graves. Is this about him? My husband's voice dropped an octave as he gestured towards our stepson with a flick of his wrist. No. I snapped back defensively but immediately regretted it when I saw my stepson's face twist with discomfort at being thrust into our argument. Then what is it about? His tone softened slightly as he attempted to connect with me through this emotional chasm that threatened to swallow us whole. "It's complicated," I replied tersely, glancing back at my stepson who was now staring intently at his hands resting on his knees, a young man caught between two worlds neither fully belonging to him. "Complicated how? You've been acting strange for days." His frustration morphed into concern. He was trying to reach me through layers of confusion and hurt feelings. "I don't know how to explain it," I sighed deeply, feeling lost within myself again amidst swirling emotions and uncharted territory. "Things have changed between us." "Between who?" He pressed further. Desperation seeped into his tone as he sought answers that eluded both of us. "Between all of us." The admission hung heavy in the air. An invisible thread connecting our fates began unraveling before my eyes, a tapestry woven with love and betrayal intertwined seamlessly together. Just then, we pulled into a rest area parking lot surrounded by tall pines swaying gently under the warm sun, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I needed space, to breathe and think clearly away from prying eyes and ears eager for answers we weren't ready to give yet. "I need some air," I announced abruptly before stepping out into daylight spilling across pavement beneath my feet, an escape route from confrontation awaiting inside that car where everything felt too raw right now. As soon as my feet hit solid ground beneath me, clarity began seeping back into focus. Reminders of moments spent laughing together during family dinners or sharing quiet evenings curled up on couches watching movies flickering across screens casting shadows over our lives. Memories now tinged with complexity, no longer innocent or simple anymore. But then reality crashed down upon me like waves crashing against rocks. There would be consequences for everything we had done. Nothing could remain hidden forever despite all efforts made thus far shielding ourselves from scrutiny surrounding our choices made behind closed doors where secrets thrived unchecked. My stepson stepped out after me hesitantly, his expression unreadable but filled with uncertainty mirroring mine, perfectly reflecting shared guilt lurking beneath surface appearances maintained so carefully until now. "We should talk," he said quietly, breaking silence enveloping us both. Those words hung suspended in air between breaths taken hesitantly while hearts raced anxiously waiting for answers, neither truly ready yet willing enough to confront together, hand in hand, standing side by side facing whatever awaited ahead. And just then, a familiar vehicle pulled into view, the unmistakable shape of my husband's car rolling slowly toward us like an ominous shadow creeping steadily nearer, threatening everything we'd tried desperately protecting until now. My heart sank deeper than ever before realizing consequences looming ahead would change everything forever, not just for me, but for all three of us caught within tangled webs spun tightly around them, unable to break free easily without dire repercussions waiting patiently beyond reach.